clear.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting for March 2nd, 2016. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Schreiber.
Here.
Placido.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Spiegelman.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Thank you. Now I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 3rd, 2016 Public Safety Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any corrections or additions? Anybody? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And so the minutes have been approved. And now I would like to call on our Chief of Police, Chief Kelly, for his report this month.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, brief report for you this month. Although the crime has continued to be down so far this year after a record low number of crime last year, we've had a number of excellent arrests, and how unfortunately we've also had a number of officers injured during those arrests. We currently have 4 officers that are completely off duty due to injuries that they received at various points in various ways on the job, as well as 2 that are working and nursing their injuries. So I just wanted you to know that that's been going on. And of course, things like that just happen coincidentally sometimes, different points, nothing specifically causing that. In one of the cases, 2 officers were injured during a very, one a sergeant, one a lieutenant, during an arrest where they spotted some individuals that were about to commit some crimes. They had drugs in the vehicle, and when they went to stop them, they did not want to be apprehended, needless to say, and so did a lot to try to get away. The officers eventually apprehended all of them, and but it was not after. One of them was hurt, and the sergeant rather seriously hurt, getting a dislocated shoulder out of the ordeal. And as we've mentioned many times before, even though they have ranked lieutenants and sergeants, they're out there doing the job, patrolling the streets, stopping the bad guys and getting involved just like all the other officers. And this was just a perfect example, since the 2 primary officers were a lieutenant and a sergeant. And other than that, everything is going well, and nothing serious to report. And that's all I have for this month, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have questions for the Chief?
Yes,
Commissioner
Schreiber. Chief Kelly, just, I mean, I know you're not a judge or a lawyer, but when someone resists arrest and then in the process of doing so injures an officer, do you have any sense of how much that can increase the trouble that they get into, the sentence that they face? I would imagine it's pretty substantial.
You're absolutely right, Commissioner, and it actually usually goes to becoming a felony and a serious felony. So it goes from being a relatively minor situation where it'd probably be a fine, no jail time, to where there's almost certainly the potential of a jail sentence. And so you're absolutely right. And in most of those cases, it's just a matter of, and we are teaching, especially the students in the schools more and more, it's just so important to comply with the police officer. If you're not happy with something that they're doing or don't think that it's right, there's plenty of opportunity to complain afterwards, and we'll be happy to take those complaints and investigate them and so on. But it's just so important that when an officer is there doing their job and enforcing the law, that the citizen complies with that, because regardless of whether the officer is right or wrong, they have no right to resist arrest, and that all gets worked out later on, and it dramatically increases the sentence. So you're absolutely right, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Chief. And obviously our thoughts and appreciation go to all the injured officers as they recover.
Commissioner Luker.
Yes, Chief, you said approximately 4 officers were off duty now because of injuries. And
yes, that's
possibly
correct.
2 on top of those 4.
Yes, that's right, Commissioner.
So how is that affecting your manpower? Well, I guess my first question is, are any of these injuries going to be long-term?
Some of them are probably going to be over a month, at least 2 of them, I would say, over a month. We just, Lieutenant Malloy just advised me just tonight that the sergeant was at the doctor's just today, and they've decided they won't need to do surgery, reconstructive surgery of the shoulder, that they're going to try to do therapy, but that's going to be an extensive period of time where he's not going to be able to work the road. There's several others that are in kind of the same type of a situation. All of them come back as soon as possible and almost always right away on light duty, and so they're not. It's not like they're off loafing. They're actually working, doing things, but not able to go out in the street because, of course, it's you need to be able to be physical on the street, and so can't do that. So, yes, we're running a little shorter than normal.
So I guess in summary, in essence, you're saying you're down 6 police officers that can range anywhere from A to B on the amount of time they're going to be out. So how are you coping with that situation?
Well, Commissioners, we have the ability to do that, obviously. We move things around. We move resources around. Some of the people that are assigned to certain details, as an example, even Al and Chris come out of traffic safety sometimes and work when the shifts are especially light, when it just turns out that with all those come together, that they're light, that's what they'll help out. We also have people that are assigned just to fill in for just situations just like this when they're not working special details. So it also happens to be a time of year when things are relatively slow as far as calls for service because of the cold weather, and also there aren't that many people on vacations and things like that. So it's not a bad time if we're going to have something like this. But I just wanted to make sure the board knew about this because this is sort of the ebb and flow that goes in running a police department, and that when we do our planning, we have to plan not only for the good times but for the challenging times as well. And so that's why we want to make sure that you're aware of what was going on with that.
And I guess my last question is, do you have contingency plans in place for situations like this where you can have office personnel go out and do patrol duty if there is such a transition that you can not cross-train?
Commissioner, because of the initiative we'd received from the board a while back that wanted us to put our inside people outside, and we civilianized all those positions. And so there's virtually no people inside that are working that can go outside. All of the people that are inside, virtually all of them are civilians. So we can't do that. And that was an option when we had people working inside to do that more in the past, but we understand why the initiative to go out and do that. But we can move people around, Commissioner, and we do that. And the supervisors, since 2 of them are supervisors, that sort of lightened up that aspect of it. And the one lieutenant's back on duty, full duty. He's back out on the road and working. And so we're coping, and we'll just move things around. It's not like it's a big something where we can't handle it. But we are doing things differently, deploying some people differently. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Klein, did you have any other questions for the chief? Chief, the other thing I have is that I was asked about if I could ask you about any other Narcan report, any more saves this month. I don't know if you keep those statistics so that you have them sort of at your fingertips, but if we could just...
We do, Commissioner, and Pat, I'll ask you, I don't recall any real recently Narcan saves that we've had.
That's correct, Chief. I don't recall any in the last few weeks.
They're usually on the SCAR report, aren't they?
What's that,
They're
Commissioner?
usually on the SCAR report. I've seen them.
That's,
I
yeah.
haven't seen any. I mean, I agree with
Yes.
Lieutenant Malloy. I haven't seen any recently.
Right. And again, those tend to go in streaks too sometimes, just by coincidence. But we haven't had any from the police department. That certainly doesn't mean that our colleagues from Second Alarmers haven't had any, because they've all along handled far more than we end up dealing with. But we haven't had any in the last few weeks, Commissioner.
Thank you. And we do have our representative from the Second Alarmist here, Rich Garrett, so he's waving for the cameras, but they probably aren't actually focused on you right now, but thank you for waving.
There might be.
Any questions for the chief or for Rich?
If it's possible, could we also have an update from Rich if on a monthly basis for the committee meetings for Narcan saves and administration?
I can try. I can get our representative that handles that. His name is Ken Davidson. And one
Rich, could you go to the mic, please? Thank you, sir.
Hi, Rich Garrett, Second Alarmist Assistant Chief. It's difficult for us to try to gather those statistics because we get dispatched to an unknown medical emergency. We can get there, and it's classified as an unknown medical emergency as in the statistics. However, it could be an overdose on heroin. We can get dispatched an unconscious person or an whatever, and that could be a Narcan overdose. But then we also get dispatched overdoses, which are Narcan overdoses. But I will check with Ken and see if we can get that report and get it off. We'll go through Chief Kelly and make sure it gets forwarded to you folks.
Great.
Thank you. And Ken is planning on being here anyway next month, so that would work out really well.
I don't know if it's possible, but the other thing that would be interesting is if there's people that are getting repeated Narcan saves.
I could try to get those also. I know that it's happened. I know
Sure it has.
particular cases, right. And where Abington Police on both cases, I think, gave the Narcan prior to our arrival. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
Rich.
that information. Anything else for the chief? Okay, then we're going to start with our regular agenda. PS1 is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2114, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Articles 3, Parking Regulations, Section 9.2, No Left Turn, and Section 11, Turns at Intersections, at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on March 10th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m., and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from the board? Staff or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS2 is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2115, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 14, Stop Intersection, and Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Traffic Regulations, Section 26, Parking Prohibited During Certain Hours, for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on April 14th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m., and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from the board?
Commissioner Schreiber, I just wanted to note, this is something many folks may not have seen, but this was actually supplemented relatively last minute to include what's going to be, what we're going to vote on in April, the new no time-restricted parking on the 1100 block of Gravania Avenue, which is something that Commissioner Schreiber and I have been working on, and just want to say many, many thanks to Traffic Safety Officer Freed and the whole Traffic Safety Unit for all of their help in making this happen.
Ditto on that. The meeting, thank you for being at the meeting, and I guess the two of you worked on the voting, so that was good, so I appreciate that as well. Any other comments or questions? Staff or audience? Hearing none, all those in,
So at the previous meeting...
Can you say your name and...
Laura Lehman, 1431
Is this
Bryant
on the
Lane.
agenda item?
And this is, are we at the end of the meeting? I thought.
No, this is
I thought you finished it.
item
Okay.
PS2.
I thought you finished it, I'm sorry.
Any other comments on PS2? It's okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS3 is a motion to adopt Resolution Number 16014, expressing opposition to Senate Bill 1055, expanding the sale, usage, and storage of consumer fireworks in Pennsylvania, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from the board or questions? Ken, would you like to give an explanation of this at all? Fire Marshal?
Certainly, Commissioner. I was recently made aware of this proposal that is in the state Senate, and I believe I sent a copy to all of the commissioners. I don't know who came up with this idea, but you know, I ought not to really give my opinion on whoever that was at that public meeting. At any rate, because it's got fireworks in it, it seems to always land in the office of the fire marshal with the fire companies. But in reality, I think the chief at the last full board meeting put on a presentation concerning the number of calls for service for the police department. I think that was really one of the only numbers that went up. Is that right, Chief? Calls for service for the department. If this law passes the way in which it's currently written, it will be legal in Pennsylvania for an 18-year-old to purchase bottle rockets, Roman candles, and mortar rounds that go up 150 feet in the air and go boom. In addition to that, it will be legal for anybody over the age of 18 to use these items from, I believe, 10 o'clock in the morning until 11 p.m. So just based on that, all of you folks, you may have to put another line in your homes to take the complaints. And for the most part, the complaints are going to go to the police department. There'll certainly be increased calls for service for the second alarmers for injuries, personal injuries to a person because of the use of these items. And on rare occasions, there'll probably be a fire or two. For the life of me, I can't imagine this bill becoming law in Pennsylvania, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I actually have a question. So I understand the changes, but currently, we obviously have organized fireworks, but in my neighborhood anyway, we have unorganized ones where people are setting things off at their homes. Is it legal because they're buying it somewhere else, or what? How does that work now?
Well, in the good old days, you had to go down 95 to south of the border to get those things, and then come north. When they originally passed the fireworks law in Pennsylvania, and I think now it's probably been about 10 years ago, they made it legal to sell those items that I'd mentioned in the state, but they could only sell them to people who resided outside the state, that had some proof of residency somewhere other than Pennsylvania. So I think what was happening was people that maybe had a house in New Jersey and had some type of New Jersey ID or Maryland, whatever, would go now into a store in Pennsylvania, make the purchase, and then, Uncle Louie would come back to the house and with a trunk full of stuff and set everybody up for the 4th of July or New Year's Eve. So there's been, I believe, in my opinion, a dramatic increase in the use of fireworks locally since this law passed to begin with. This would just open up the floodgates and allow an 18-year-old individual to go into stores that sell this stuff in Pennsylvania and use it legally between the hours of 10 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night.
Yes, it would, and I am totally opposed to any household. But we do have now between, you're right, the phone calls with noise, me, myself, and animals all through the area not liking the noise. But in addition to that, there's been several times where I've thought a car is going to catch on fire because they're so close to people's cars. And so, yeah, anything that, I don't know if a resolution like this does a whole lot of good, but I am definitely in favor of it. So, any questions from anybody? Yes.
One quick one for the chief. The items that you mentioned, can they be purchased in the state now, in the state of Pennsylvania?
They can be purchased in the state of Pennsylvania if you can produce out-of-state identification.
Okay.
And there was actually a show on, there was a Senate hearing televised. I saw it about 3 weeks ago, which piqued my interest on it, and we did some research. But most of the stores, the brick-and-mortar stores that sell this stuff, are located on the borders of the state of Pennsylvania right now. If you leave Pennsylvania, you still have to go down 95 south of the border to get to South Carolina to make a similar purchase. None of this stuff is legal in any other states between Pennsylvania and South Carolina. What they were saying in the Senate hearing was that if this law passes, there'll be stores scattered throughout the state, not just on the borders. So it'll become, I believe, even more prevalent. You'll see more and more of it in the neighborhoods because of the fact that now the brick and mortar stores will be legal throughout the state, and they'll be profitable.
So those tents that have,
These pop-up tents.
the pop-up tents, like a Drescher Town has one, and are they not selling these, or they?
Yeah, no, they're selling them, but I believe because it's a temporary sale, it's covered through zoning ordinances, and they're only permitted to sell over a certain period of time. But,
But does that have to be to out-of-state people, too?
yes.
Didn't know that.
They don't ask you for.
Well, there's things that they do sell in those tents.
For
People that do.
aerial fireworks, you have to be out of state.
The only thing that's legal to purchase in Pennsylvania are
They're all
ground
fountains.
sparklers, and you can buy anything that doesn't go boom. But if it leaves the air or if it goes boom, you can't buy it right now. If you're from Pennsylvania, you can't purchase it right now in Pennsylvania. But if you happen to have a Jersey driver's license, you can buy it.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
Question actually for Solicitor Clark. In the event that a bill like this would somehow passed, would that preempt the township's ability to regulate or ban these type of fireworks within township property?
In many ways, it would. There would be certain areas that we would still probably be able to have certain restrictions if they were unrelated to fireworks. But in the expansion of this and the expansion of being able to sell and own and use these fireworks by Pennsylvania residents, much of what we probably would have on the books would probably be preempted by the state law.
Thank you. That figured.
So you're talking about like noise ordinances might be able to preempt it?
Yeah, I think you'll still be able to have your noise ordinances with regards to certain times, but our noise ordinance, for instance, I think talks about unreasonable noises. We wouldn't be able to call this unreasonable during certain times during the day because it's a legal activity.
Commissioner Myers.
Fire Marshal, quick question. Are you aware of any organized effort among Pennsylvania fire departments or fire marshals' offices to oppose this Senate bill?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a recent article in Pennsylvania Firemen, and there's several organizations, fire-related organizations in this state that are actively attempting to fight this. And if I can add to what the solicitor was saying, part of the problem is going to be that you use the stuff, in order to, stop it, you have to be able to identify who's using it. And 99 times out of 100, they light it and run. So, I mean, it's going to be a free fire zone out there.
Any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. I just have one question. On this side of the township, I don't know about the other side. I have not seen tents. I've seen in Upper Dublin. I've seen them in Springfield, but I haven't seen Cheltenham.
There's one in Cheltenham,
Cheltenham,
SGS
yes.
parking lot, Mount
Right.
Carmel Avenue there.
But that's Cheltenham.
Yes.
I'm talking about our township. I don't know about the other side. Have you guys that live on?
I haven't seen one.
Now, I believe
You're on my
for
side.
some reason, we've been able to ban it
Good.
through our zoning ordinances. I think we've been able to prevent tents from popping up in our township over the holiday.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think that's good.
For a while, there was one at the Luck Oil on Old York Road in Commissioner Hecker's ward.
Where was one?
Yes.
On Old,
they were-
Luke Oil on Old York Road is in Ward 11, actually.
They were actually operating without any, they didn't even check into the township commissioner, so they were given their walking papers.
I saw them in the past. I don't know that I've seen them recently.
Well, that's what I was curious. I just, don't know all the areas. So.
Target sells them.
And, this might work in Tioga County,
Well, sure.
or Hooterville, but in the cities and urban areas, this is going to really present problems.
Well, it pollutes, too. I mean, we'll have smoke everywhere.
And debris, fireworks debris,
Right.
schools, everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, the Target sells fireworks. Well, they sell the ones that you can actually shoot off in Pennsylvania, the fountains
Right.
that are land-based, that are sitting on the ground. So I've never seen them have any aerials.
And Chief, you have anything to add to this as far as like what you think will happen?
Well, I'm sure the Commissioner saw the email that I sent out completely supporting your position on that. It's obviously something that's dangerous for the people that would be doing it. It's going to be annoying to the residents that are going to have to put up with dramatically more of these things going off. I mean, there's just no question about that. And then finally, you're going to have the situation of the all these places popping up to sell them, and there's no way that ever looks good. So it's obviously special interest legislation that is being done for the benefit of the people who will make money on it, and everybody else is going to have to suffer from it. And I think we're doing the right thing by opposing it. Certainly, the benefits to anyone in Abington Township are minimal at best, and the downside is tremendous. And I think, Commissioner, you said whether it'll do any good. I don't know whether it will or not, but I think what it might do is maybe if enough municipalities, along with the professions, oppose it, that it will point out the facts to the citizens, so at least it won't slip through. And if people go and vote for it, the citizens will understand that they're voting for something that is pretty much special interest legislation. And if they still want to vote for it, then that's up to them. But it's certainly not going to slip through as easily as if we avoided it. And I think Fire Marshal Clark did us a service by bringing it to our attention. And I think that the board is absolutely doing the right thing by at least putting people on notice that in our community it's not something that we think is to our community's advantage or our citizens' advantage.
Yeah, agreed. Any other comments from commissioners, staff, or audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, and I want to thank you for those comments and that position. I am very interested in how, to Commissioner Gillespie's question and Fire Marshal Clark's answer, how the fire marshals across Pennsylvania might rally. It would seem that no legislation should succeed when all the fire marshals, and I think they're all united, as are the chiefs of police, and if the chiefs of police and the fire marshals all are rallying behind this resolution coming from every place, there should be no question that that supersedes the wishes of the special interests. And in that same vein, we have been asking, for instance, for just such a resolution regarding solicitation, which is also, number one, dangerous, number two, unwanted, and could be in the same way handled through chiefs of police and those interested in our safety and our welfare. And in regard to solicitation, none of us signed up in commercial areas. If they want to allow it in commercial areas where there happen also to be residences, but those of us who live in residential districts shouldn't have to do that. So I would like to encourage that we, I'd like to know more about how that is, and perhaps I can call the fire marshal and find out how that's going, because I think that, and I've asked several times on many issues in this township, that we coordinate with all those others whose residents certainly feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our agenda. Any comments from commissioners on public safety? Or staff? Yes. Commissioner.
I just briefly wanted to thank Officer Freed for working with me on, we have a new stop sign coming into Ward 3 now. I know we've talked about some others, but thank you for showing me the ropes and explaining to me and multiple members of Ward 3 about questions about that. So I just wanted to thank you for working with me on that. And I plan to bother you a little more with that, so thanks in advance for dealing with me on that. Thank you.
Also, he's selling fireworks.
Didn't say no to him?
Not yet.
Didn't say no to him?
He definitely reserved the rights.
You were lucky. Yes, you were lucky.
He always reserves the right to say no.
I think the first one's free.
Yeah.
First
You
stop
get
sign's free.
one, and then you're done. You're cut off now.
My first 5 were so not free.
Any other comments on public safety?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. Now I'm at the right place. The thing that we talked about at the Public Works meeting, those
This is
are...
public safety, Mrs. Lehman.
At the Public Works meeting, we talked about the mechanics of the sewer vents and that kind of thing. The issue that I want to address with public safety is the fact that gases that get forced up into your house are a safety issue. And I seem to be unable to initiate a conversation more than 3 minutes at the podium where when I sit down, somebody undoes what I am saying by saying something that generally is not true or twists it. So I'm trying to get a place where, for the safety of the residents in this township, we are able to have that conversation. So I will ask you, Madam Chair, if outside of this meeting, instead of in public, you will engage with me in a conversation about what we can do about some of those things. And I want to add that the thing with these are clean-out vents and these are vents, Mr. Lieber also told me they were gas vents. I didn't recall that the other night, 2 nights ago, when we were having this discussion. But I had that discussion with Mr. Lieber, and I said, well, are they having the same experience that they're having in Cheltenham with gas? He said, yeah, we've been getting some calls. So, at no time were these clean-out vents in all those earlier discussions. They've just become clean-out vents that were plugged up. So, and
believe, and you can correct me, and I'm sure you will if I am incorrect about this, but I believe that our staff at Public Works did address this with you. They would be the experts, not I.
Okay, so you understand that if I have 3 minutes to address something, and in the speed of trying to do that, after I'm done, 2 people tried to undo what I said and left a false impression with the entire public over what was said.
Well, I can't say if it's-
And so
if
what
it's
I'm trying
false
to
or
do
not,
is,
but-
I'm not interested in having this discussion in public. I'm interested in seeing that the needs of the public are met, and I see some things that are of concern. So I need a place to talk more than 3 minutes about how we might address that.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is I am not an expert, and I am not the right person for you to talk to about that. So
You would
it
be the person who would follow up with the experts whom you direct, who serve at your leisure.
Commissioner Schreiber, I would suggest that the speaker get in touch with a plumber.
With a plumber.
This is,
I mean, this
there's
is-
my
this is pure-
commissioner,
this is-
there's my commissioner
this is
helping the
con-
health,
this is
safety,
pl-
and
this is
welfare of
basic
his
plumbing
residents.
standards
Okay.
in the township and throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania and the United States. I mean, a plumber could answer her questions in a second.
Well, it's actually not about that at all. Okay? In the 10 years that I've been doing this, we had virtually no sewage backups, okay? In 2 years ago, we
Instead of
did
us going into
we did
your
have them.
plumbing situation.
And now we had 5
Excuse
this
me.
year.
Instead of you, Manager LaFever, can you get an answer from, I guess it would be through...
Mr. Wrigley, I guess.
Mr. Wrigley, and get back to the speaker.
I'm not sure what you're getting an answer.
I'm not clear on what the answer would be on, but we'll give it a shot.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay?
Excuse me.
All right, thank you.
Can I just say one thing, and I know it's not public safety, but I believe the resident is talking about curb traps, and they were taken care of, and there were a lot of those in my ward, okay? That was settled.
Thank you. There's no other comments. This meeting is adjourned.
We got one item?
Move this over here. All right, everybody. It is my pleasure to call to order the Abington Township Public Affairs Committee meeting of March 2nd, 2016. Please start with a roll call, please. Here.
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 Good roll call. Let us start with the approval of the minutes. This is a motion to approve the minutes of the February 3rd, 2016 Public Affairs Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, revisions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Are you going to say good minutes
Good.
now?
I guess they're good minutes. They're good enough to not be corrected. And now, as always, Parks and Recreation Bureau Director Doug Wendell with his Parks and Rec report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Director Wendell.
The only thing this month is that the springtime brochure is almost completed, and it'll be sent out to the printers. And this one does get mailed out to all the households in the township, so hopefully everybody will be seeing it in the next few weeks. If they don't, it should be already online, and if they don't receive it, give our office a call and we'll mail you a copy.
Thank you very much, Doug. You're welcome. All right, let us start with our first item, PA1, Pool Feasibility Study Grant Award. This is a motion to accept a grant from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for a feasibility study for the Penbrin and Crestmont pools in the amount of $15,000, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Doug, pretty self-explanatory, but any background you want to?
Not too much. It's just we were very fortunate to get this grant, and the match of $15,000 is already in the capital for this year. So we're ready to go as soon as they give us the paperwork and say move forward.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the committee? Commissioners in
Doug, a little bit of explanation about the grant. So you say it's a conservation and natural resource grant.
Right.
So how will that affect the pools or the area?
It's the pools specifically, and what it is, it's a grant to check on whether or not the township can support renovating the pools and whether or not that's going to be economically feasible. And then there's a whole 6-page scope of work that goes along with that. So there'll be community participation, and there'll be a consultant that'll be hired, and once we get through all that, we'll have a much clearer idea as to what we need to do, what direction the pool should go in, and the management style, economic type of action we should take. So it'll be probably 6 to 9 months at least before it's completed.
So it's more of a grant to understand the feasibility or the community action in the pool or the area of the park?
The needs of the township as far as the pools are concerned. And the thing with this is that when it's most likely, I would feel safe in guessing that it's going to come out in a positive way, which means that we would probably be moving forward in the next year or so to start renovating both pools, which you're probably looking at $3 million apiece, depending on what we end up having to do. So to get any money from DCNR for that phase, we have to have the feasibility study done. So it's basically something you want to do no matter what. But if you want to get any additional money from DCNR, you have to have this completed first. So it's kind of the first step.
Doug, do you foresee simultaneous renovation of the pools, or is that a question that's going to be answered possibly by this study?
I don't think the study's going to answer that, but it's something that we're going to have to talk about with consultants who maybe have done this type of thing, because to do one and then do the other, you're shutting down one pool for 1 year. It's going to be tough having all those people from either Penbrin go to Crestmont or Crestmont go to Penbrin. It might be easier if they can do it in 6 months to start immediately at the end of the 1 year. And obviously you're going to have some time in the winter that you can't do anything, and then you're going to have like March, April, May, then you can finish it up. So it would be ideal to do it at the same time, and so it just depends on whether the contractors feel that it's possible, and certainly that'll probably be something that I could discuss on the side with these consultants. But it's definitely a consideration when we get into that part.
Thank you, Doug. Commissioner Klein, did you have a question?
What kind of firm does the consulting?
Generally, it's ones that deal with recreation items, but if you have experience in building pools and pool facilities, then anybody really. I mean, there's a number of consultants that we use pretty regularly, just like engineering has consultants that they go for engineering. We go for recreation-type activities. But everybody's welcome to apply. We'll have the scope, once we get the go-ahead from DCNR, we'll have the scope of work approved, and then we'll have that advertised as we do any bid, even though it's professional services, and anyone's welcome to bid on it.
Any other Commissioner Gillespie?
Thank you. Doug, how old is Crestmont Pool? I know Pembroke Pool.
They're both about the same. They're only about a year or two difference. One, I think Pembroke was built first in 72, something like that, and Crestmont was built a couple years later, so they're both the same age almost.
They're only a couple years apart? I thought it was much more than that. Didn't we back in the day, wasn't there federal money used for
Yes.
Pembroke Pool?
Yes, I don't remember if it was federal or state, but there was money that was used that came in from one of those two groups.
Is that why that pool usually has out of the township people?
No, we allow non-residents in both pools.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we used to limit it to 400, but the numbers in the pools have dropped from like 12,000 on an average year to about a little over 6,000. So we haven't really met that 400 at any point. It used to be the first day in January that we were selling non-resident tags, that they would be sold out at Pembroke within an hour. And Crestmont would usually sell out later. But, you know, it's not that bad right now. I think the age of the pools and the costs have gone up almost every single year that we've had the pools in operation. So fewer people have been paying more, so it's that break-even point that we probably are reaching. Once we get to the point where we can renovate the pools and make them a little more modern, a little more, a little easier for people to use, the ladies' rooms are atrocious in their size. I mean, the size for the ladies' rooms are half the size of the men's rooms, which, you know, doesn't make any sense anymore and hasn't made any sense for probably 30 years. So a lot of those things have to be changed. I think once those things get changed, I think it'll be much more enjoyable for people to come, and then our numbers will start moving up, get more modern facilities, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Definitely looking forward to that.
So am I.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Township staff? Audience? Oh. All right, then, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PA1 carries. Items PA2 and PA3 are both Penn State Abington related. Those have been moved to April's agenda. So moving on to PA4, C2P2 grant application for the Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary. This is a motion to approve the Bureau of Parks and Recreation and the Shade Tree Commission to apply for a DCNR C2P2, that's Community Conservation Partnership Program, development grant for improvements in the Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary, guided by the above-referenced Land Management Plan and Abington Township MS4 program. A match of $20,000 will be required if the grant is awarded. Funding of the match will come from the 2017-2018 MS4 funding, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Doug, you want to share any background? I think we might have a guest who is going to...
Rita Stevens is here from the Shade Tree Commission, and a lot of this is directly related to some stormwater issues that are being dealt with in the wildlife sanctuary. And Rita, this is really Rita's work, so I'd let her explain it.
I figured as much. Dr. Stevens, welcome. If you could introduce yourself and name and address and all that good stuff.
Rita Stevens, I chair the Shade Tree Commission. We're really excited about this project in partnership with Parks and Rec, in that the total conceived project would be an $80,000 spend, for which the township would only be required to provide a $20,000 match. It's because we have capacity as a Shade Tree Commission to manage this kind of project. What we're looking at is threefold. One, very much around the main higher use area of Ardsley Wildlife Sanctuary that's off of Maple Avenue, to really get at invasive plant control and restoration, so that we end up getting a better sustainable forest, and one that functions to recharge water into the ground, and so therefore it gives us ecologic function in the stormwater end of things. It also gives a better access for residents. We're looking to do some trail development to have some firm and stable surfaces, the types of things that you would have at the Pennypack Nature Preserve or at the Meadowbrook Bird Sanctuary. You get firm and stable, so a parent could come with a child in a stroller in order to get access and to be able to get up to the pond area for viewing of wildlife, et cetera. So this is exactly the type of thing that's a priority for DCNR C2P2 funding. They're really wanting people to take existing parks and open space and make them better, connecting people with nature as well as putting in best management practices for conservation. So I think we really have all the pieces together here and have had a DCNR representative here coaching us and helping us structure the grant.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevens. I'm sure probably be some questions. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the committee?
I'll take a
Commissioner, comments?
So, you're talking about the Maple Avenue where the ponds are, and I guess the water basin that was put in there. You'll go through there and do a study on what needs to be removed and placed, or?
Correct. Actually, what's pretty neat about this, it's a C2P2 pot of money, much like the same pot of money that you just voted on the pools. In this case, it's considered a development grant. That is, that DCNR has deemed that we have done enough evaluation and planning of the area that we know what to do, and so the money would be for implementation as opposed to feasibility. And so it's a mix. We had, in early 2015, the Shade Tree Commission took on as a priority the stewardship of the sanctuary. And in the course of the last 12 months, we've had 5 different agencies including DCNR, Fish and Game, Vernal Pool People, et cetera, to give us detailed recommendation on the land management and what ought to be done for restoration as well as access. And again, the C2P2 coach has said to us, you really have your feasibility and plans together, and so now part of the $80,000 would be then to hire professional services to detail that design as well as to implement.
Because I believe when we talked about the master bike plan, part of that trail would go in the side of there. Is that part of that?
I don't believe that the master bike plan has the trail going through there. It has it as a destination, is my understanding.
Okay. Because if you
And in fact, what we're looking
you
to...
looked at the map, it kind of connected Jackson Avenue to Susquehanna Road, and it went through that way.
The bike plan did have.
The bike plan did.
Did have an off-road trail going.
It had an off-road trail back there. I just wanted to have, I grew up there. It was part of my neighborhood. They had really neat fishing ponds, ice skating ponds as we were
Right.
kids. It was a good place to go. It was neat. It was a great, and I'm sure it's grown in. I don't walk back there much. I probably have been back there once in the last how many years, but I just wanted to know more about what you're doing and what the bike plan and how that would all come together, or that is not a part of what we're looking at or what you're looking at.
I believe it's consistent with the bike plan. My only involvement with the bike plan has been at 2 or 3 public meetings, presentations, so I haven't studied in detail. But what we're looking for is pretty much a minimal impact. Those of you that have been in the main entrance to the sanctuary may recall that there's a service road that goes from Maple Avenue up to the detention pond, or the retention pond. That's the major stormwater feature. And what we're looking to do is to just, on top of there, in essence, address the erosion. If you've been back there the last few days since this last big storm, there's a lot of cuts in that road. And so we're looking to have this project address, capture, and mitigate erosion that's happening, and then get a firm and stable surface on top of that existing pathway in terms of the access.
They have done a lot of work there because the flooding is not as bad as when we were kids growing up there. My wife lived at that house, that yellow house right there at Maple, and Jefferson. So they experienced a lot of flooding in that property, and that's all been repaired. But I know exactly what you're talking about. The erosion is still continuing to go on back there. So
It is.
it's good to hear that they're continuing to do that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners in general? Commissioner Klein.
Rita, so how are you quantifying, or who quantified the MS4 credits that would come from the work?
I've been working with our township engineer, Mr. Powers, and what we did is look really line by line on everything that we proposed and ascertained whether the township could get MS4 credit for it. And our rough estimate is that at least $60,000 worth of this project spend is eligible for getting credit towards our MS4 investment in in continuous improvement in managing our stormwater.
And is that in the Wissahickon watershed?
It is, yes, it is in the Wissahickon. It's Sandy Run that goes to Wissahickon. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. I did have one. How are you, Rita? Good to see you. The part we're dealing with Edge Hill Road, the other section across the driveway, would they ever be able to work together somehow? Or
Well,
because
in essence, they do work together. I'll say, first of all, is that this is in the portion of the wildlife sanctuary that is completely separate from any of the Edge Hill Tyson reconstruction project, which is up on the top of the hill.
I do know
end
that.
of things. But recognize water runs downhill, and so in essence, what this does, in my mind, is supplements what is being designed for the Edge Hill Tyson. Edge Hill Tyson reconstructions projects set aside, we still have water running downhill, and we still have major erosion problems that are happening in this area that can definitely be mitigated by especially the restorative planning. Our current estimate is about $50,000 of the $80,000 spend is around restoration of meadows, first of all, handling invasive plant species that have just totally inundated that lower reach. So getting professional management, similar to what Doug and company have been getting in place for Jackson Park. So it's that type of effort to professionally get on top of the invasive plants and then come back with restorative plantings that ultimately end up in a forest meadow combination area that will allow the water to soak into the ground as opposed to run off and erode.
well, there were, I don't know, 3 ponds in there, Steve? Back in the day, I used to ice skate on them too. And that's what happens when they get.
I heard of Floaty's Pond. I'm not from here, but I heard of Floaty's Pond. Very famous.
Now, this is a volunteer position that you have, right?
Retention-based.
It is.
And the other ones were.
And the ones right above.
Did you hear what I said? This is a volunteer position that Rita does, and I think you do an excellent job. I mean, really.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Shade Tree Commission, I thank the entire team. Just to give you a sense and confidence in our volunteer organization to be able to do this, we're estimating that our in-kind services from the professionals that provide design for us, as well as our volunteer, will be on scale of what we did for TD Green Streets last year. You may recall that we had a $20,000 grant from TD Green Streets to plant close to 200 trees and shrubs in the Roslyn area. And that essentially included a lot of training, and so we expanded our volunteer pool and our trained volunteer pool that now stands ready to apply their services to this project.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevens. And certainly, I think we all echo Commissioner Gillespie's appreciation of everything that you do.
Good luck.
Any questions, comments, any further from Commissioners? Commissioner Klein.
To Commissioner Kalinowski, we had just received some information from Peter Simoni, who was doing the grant application for the part of the implementation of the master bike plan, and EVRPC came back and asked if we could come up with an on-road alternative for that area going through the wildlife area. so, to reduce the cost and make it more of a viable
Because
grant
I
application.
would like to see a walking trail back there again. There's really not much there, so.
It's really begging for a nice
It's begging
walking
for help.
experience, yeah.
So to add a bike trail would probably be the same. That's the only thing I was thinking.
They
can walk on the bike
some-
trail.
I wasn't against it, for pretty much right out there would be, have a connection, so.
Thank you for looking that up, Commissioner Klein. Any questions or comments from Township staff?
Just
Director Wendell.
one thing to add to Commissioner Kalinowski's comments, that we've had a couple of Eagle Scouts do their projects back there, and they've done some major improvements on the trails, and we do have another Eagle Scout that's asking for it, so I know I was going to talk with Rita later and just see if that was something that they'd be able to do, but it is now, it's pretty walkable now. It may not be that great for off-road bikes, but it's pretty walkable from a number of different streets that dead end into the back of there, and then they take you out to the pond.
We used to horseback ride through there, so we had horses down on Meyer Avenue.
I was going to say, where'd you get the horses?
So we'd ride them
Meyer
through
Avenue,
Ardsley
yeah.
Park and come up through. this-
Fitzgerald's, right?
Fitzgerald's, yeah, my mother was a Fitzgerald, so our cousins,
Oh,
we always
really?
had horses growing up. So that was the place we'd horseback ride through there. So this, it's I know a lot back there.
That's kind of cool.
It was
I did not grow up with a horse background, so I'm pretty impressed. Any other comments from Township staff? Questions or comments from residents? All right, hearing none, we are going to vote on PA4. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? PA4 passes. All right, our final item is PA5, settlement of Patane, 1180 Easton Road, condemnation proceedings. This is a motion to approve a settlement agreement on the litigation related to the condemnation proceedings for 1180 Easton Road and authorize payment of $125,000 to the condemnee for payment of reasonable costs relating to the process, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This has been it's a very long-standing legal engagement. Manager Lefevre or Solicitor Clark, is there anything you want to say about it?
It's what's contained in the settlement release and agreement that's in front of you. This is the completion of a condemnation matter that began in May of 2009, and this is an ultimate resolution. The agreement that you have in front of you has already been approved and executed by the property owner, so if the board approves this next week, that will resolve once and for all this matter, which is going on 7 years now.
Thank you, Solicitor Clark. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the committee? Commissioners in general? Staff? Audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. Do we have some idea of the entire cost by the time we're done of the litigation and the cost of the attempted taking? Do we have a cost on this whole project?
I do not. I mean, obviously, this would be this
we
is
could
sort
ask
of the big
Mr.
chunk of it.
Lefevre?
Mr. Clark, I don't know if you're in a position to answer that question.
Well, everything we've done has been done under the retainer. I believe most of that is true for my predecessor, Mr. Herbert. Other than some costs for filing in the Court of Common Pleas, which are probably in the couple $100 range, I don't believe they're beyond what this $125,000.
I think there's a couple $1,000s for a structural engineer at one point.
Appraisal or something along
Gotcha.
those lines, but it would be, would not be.
Right, so this is most, okay. Thank you very much, Solicitor Clark.
So in the total analysis, I'm looking to know, from the day that we said we would like to condemn this property, we had grant money that was gotten and used, we had, and I think some of it had to be turned back.
What was not used?
Was it all turned back? All of it was turned back? Because we
lost.
had
It
a
was
great
sacrificed.
deal of expense in staff time. So staff time is not free. If we didn't have the colonnade and we didn't have the eminent domain and so on, our solicitor would not have anywhere near as much to do, and he'd be sad and lonely, and he'd charge us less for that.
No, actually,
So-
I think as Solicitor Clark explained, both in the case of Solicitor Clark and Solicitor Clark's predecessor, this is covered by what we pay them regardless. This is what we
Well, but
have
what
the
he
solicitor
charges
for.
us depends on how many hours he ends putting in for Abington Township. And when you have...
No. There are matters, now, and I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I know that there are matters that are basically extra, that are, they're not matters that are extra. Oh, this was not right, but this is, the solicitor expenses pertaining to this condemnation
Are
issue
covered in
are
his
covered by what the
general
solicitor
fee.
gets paid regardless, and that is also true of Solicitor Clark's predecessor in that position.
Right. What I'm conveying, I understand what you're saying, and I'm just not conveying it properly. What I'm conveying to you is if we had a township that only needed 5 hours of attorney service, to stamp some documents and write something, they would charge us as an attorney something different than they would charge us if they were doing things like $5 million colonnade cases and something that took from 2009 to 2016 here to settle. I think you can agree with that, right?
I
If we only had
disagree, because that's without going over the same thing over and over again.
In a hypothetical world, if there was a first-class township located in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that only required 5 hours a month of attorney time, then yes, in that hypothetical world, then maybe the fees that would be charged by that.
That was hyperbole.
Would be less than we are charging here. But a first-class township the size of this one, 50,000 residents, 250 employees, requires significantly more than 5 hours a month of attorney time.
Indeed, and obviously, whatever it is we do is analyzed in order to charge. So I'm not going to go any further. But our staff time also is in the same vein, and we had a great many hours of staff time in that. And somehow these projects seem not. For instance, I had discussed with the colonnade that we had so many hours of staff time, literally things that just never should have been. But things were not done properly, and so they were done in an exhaustive manner. The number of documents, I'm still going through the last set now, the number of documents is just exhaustive. So the ability to say, that doesn't cost us more money, of course it does. It costs us staff time. And so that's when you need 2 people instead of, 1 person in an office. Or you need 3, or we don't have enough in the, to go out and do the zoning inspections. Well, we don't have enough because the zoning inspector happens to be the same guy who's the code enforcer, who happens to be the same guy who's doing all the colonnade papers. So when we are doing those projects and we're not keeping count of them, that becomes an issue. And we have a lot of accounting issues that brought us to this budget time where we had, at times, millions and millions in the budget, and we're talking about raising people's taxes. So until we start getting that stuff straightened out, we have a problem. So I should be able to ask, what did this eminent domain cost? And I should be able to get an answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
We wanted to hear.
All right. Let's vote. All in favor of PA 5? Aye. Opposed? PA 5 passes. All right, that concludes the formal agenda of public affairs. Any general public affairs related comments from anyone?
Laura Lehman again, and while we're on the budget, I just want to say, in the papers that I looked at from the Parks and Recreation Department, one of the things that popped off the page was $190,000 in rent for the Ardsley Community Center. You'll recall, I think, the conversations that we had where we talked about the fact that the Ardsley Community Center was virtually free. We pay the school $1 for it, and we talked about the fact that, yes, we do, but we put maintenance into it. We put, in fact, $1.7 million over the last period, and that came out to something like $48,000 a year. But nowhere, when we were having those discussions, did anybody mention the $190,000. And the school talked about how lucky they were that we were taking care of the property for them, and they didn't mention that although $50,000 a year is something we're putting into it and saving them, that the other $140,000 is rent that they're not getting. So, and then I began to look at how that rent was listed. So I looked for it all over in the Parks and Recs budget, and it wasn't there. So it seems I didn't get an answer fully from administration. I'm still waiting for that answer. But the only place that I could find it listed was rents are listed in the general fund. So that's where it is in the $570,000 in the general fund, I believe. I'm guessing that it's in that figure.
Because they were needlessly working on other things.
I'm sorry?
Township staff was needlessly working on other things.
Like the colonnade, Mr. Klein?
Continue, please.
Okay, so in essence, if we are taking the rent from the Parks and Recreation Department, okay, and putting that rent into the general budget, the general funds, and then we are saying, well, Parks and Recs is running at such and, I think it was $30,000 was the figure that I saw. I haven't analyzed them all yet. But let's just say the Parks and Rec income and outgo is maybe running at a $30,000 loss. I don't know if that's correct, but I think I saw that on one of the sheets. I would have to do them all to be sure. But if that $190,000 is not in there as income, then what happens is we have the $190,000 in that fund balance that everybody keeps saying we can't touch. So we have to raise taxes. Whereas if that same $190,000 was in the Parks and Rec's budget, okay, and you were balancing out your income for Parks and Rec's programs versus your outgo, so the rental for the building went in there, you would actually have a very different picture. And
And probably realize who killed President Kennedy also from the grassy knoll, too.
Perhaps.
For the record, your 3 minutes have expired, so.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so the other thing I just quickly wanted to say.
30 seconds, please.
Okay.
And that will actually be it.
And the accounting is one of them. In my 30 seconds' time, I would like to tell you, Mr. Chair, that you were completely incorrect to change around my comments in Public Works, and that is a huge issue that we need to stop in this township. In fact, the Wawa, the Sussman, the Colonial, St. Michael's, all of those things are issues where things that we were approving in one room were actually undone in another room. And so when you say that Abington is not doing something to create the flooding problems, I have a list of things here that's huge.
You were actually you've actually taken an extra minute.
And we are.
All right. Well, thank you for that opinion.
Well, I would like...
That's it. Your time has expired. Your extra time has expired. Thank you for that opinion. I'm actually not going to comment because I think I made myself pretty clear the other day, and that's...
And you were
100%
wrong.
No, you're done. No, okay, that's your... Thank you for your opinion.
Wrong.
Thank you for your opinion. All right.
It's not an opinion.
Okay.
Facts.
I think, motion to adjourn? Hey, let's adjourn.